What's up, guys? First episode of the 217 podcast. Gonna just be going over the little overview today. Gonna be seeing, what this is all about. Going over, future things. Obviously, my name is Bryce Burnett. I'm a senior in college. I go to Eastern Illinois. From Danville, Illinois. Went to Westville High School. Big sports fan. Love baseball, basketball, football. Um, Three favorites. My teams, I guess, that I root for. I'm a big St. Louis Cardinals fan. Big Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan in football. Runner up this year. Hopefully, be better next year. A huge Illinois men's basketball fan, even though we're on a little bit of a skid right now. But been watching those guys since I was, 5, 6 years old. Remember the teams that weren't very good, so it's good to see them, coming back to fruition. And then I'm a big Chicago Bears fan. I know that's a little hard to say right now, but big fan of the Bears. Excited for the future. But yeah, so those are the teams that I kind of root for. That's kind of what will be talked about on here. NFL, MLB, NCAA, men's basketball, and then football. Um, you might see some of my friends on here. I plan to have at least one guest a week, whether that be, Griffin, Brevin, Cole, Haven, Carson, Bryson, Matt, Brado, Luke. I mean, there's a plethora of guys that, they root for different teams. So it'll be good to get them on here and really see what they have to say about their team and also what they have to say about controversy in certain divisions. I know like Brado and Luke are Packers fans, and obviously I'm a Bears fan, so that'll be a fun one. Carson's a Cowboys fan, so that'll always be good to have a little friendly confrontation about sports. But to kick things off, I'm going to talk about Cardinals baseball. So the Cardinals are coming off what we would consider a pretty down year. You don't win the division. You have pretty much the best corner infield in Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt that has been seen in the MLB for a long time. And you really see these guys underperform. And it was, we went out and we got Sonny Gray in the offseason, and everybody's like, well, you need one more starter. I know we were linked to, Aaron Nola and Yamamoto and all these guys, and we just didn't go out and do it. And I personally think that's because of John Mozeliak. He has brought this team to a point where it's like we are not going to spend the money, and that is hard in the MLB right now, where it is an uncapped salary, where however much your owner wants to spend is however much your salary cap is. I mean, prime example, the Dodgers. Seems like they can sign anybody and everybody. But the Cardinals win total this year is set at 77.5. It's the lowest it's been since 2010. And it's just shocking to me that a team that has this much talent, that has this veteran star power, is supposed to be this low. They're picked to finish third in the division, if not fourth. And I mean, growing up, I got to see some really great Cardinal teams. I mean, 2011 was the first year that I started watching baseball. And I mean, just watching that team with Albert Pujols and Matt Holliday, Lance Berkman, I mean, Chris Carpenter, you see those teams and you see the way that they're built. And the Cardinals sort of try to do that with this new team that they just brought in. They've got their MVP in Paul Goldschmidt, and then they've got the kind of Robin to the Batman with Nolan Arenado, and then you got good pitching. But it really just didn't work out, and you end up seeing that happen. Paul Goldschmidt ends up leaving in free agency. He has a really bad year this year. And the biggest question is right now for the Cardinals is, what is Nolan Arenado doing? I mean, is he staying or is he leaving? Are the Cardinals going to try to capitalize on his value? But realistically, I'm not sure how much value is there. I mean, last year, one of the worst years of his career, he plays 152 games. But he only has 157 hits, and he hits 16 home runs and only drives in 71. Granted, the Cardinals were bad, but watching those games with Nolan Arenado, you could tell that something was different. I mean, Nolan's first year in St. Louis, he hits 34 home runs and drives in 105 for a team that, wins the division and should have won more games if we didn't run into the Phillies, who eventually went into the World Series that year. Um, I mean, you just saw this year batting average, it was still 272, but his OBP 325 just wasn't really there. Slugging was the worst of his career. Um, and you just saw a very big production dip. I mean, you can't expect your four-hole hitter, your cornerstone infielder, right now the face of your franchise to hit 71 RBIs and have 16 home runs. Um, I mean, he had 23 doubles, which is the worst of his career, besides the 2020 season where everything was shortened. His WAR was a career low 2.5. I mean, this is a career 7.4 WAR guy, and so to see that drastically dip, I just think it's time to move on. I think it's time to capitalize. Go out there and find somebody that's looking for a third baseman, that's looking for a cornerstone bat. I know I hate trading intra-division, but the Cubs are a third baseman away from being a really, really good team. They've got a really good farm system. They just went out and got Kyle Tucker. They're, a couple bats away, a couple solid infielders away because Isaac Paredes was not the guy that they thought he was going to be. And whether it's Arenado or Bregman, um, that is pretty much who I would pretty sure take those two to be my infield. And past that, I mean, you might start Matt Shaw. Not sure who else they've got. That'll be on a future episode when I talk about the Cubs with some of my other friends. But moving forward, I would try to capitalize on Nolan's value. I would try and see what I can go out and get, a couple prospects, maybe some lower ends. I mean, you're not going to get somebody's number 1 through 3 unless it's just not a guy in the top 100. And you can maybe look to Houston. I mean, they're giving up Bregman because they don't want to pay him. And maybe, you could get some of that salary. Cardinals could throw in some of that money to help that salary cap, but I'm not sure that that would even work either. But yeah, I think Nolan should be traded. Let him go play for a contending team. Yeah, he was out in Colorado for the longest time, and I mean, making the playoffs 1 year in Colorado is very, frustrating for a guy that could be a Hall of Famer. But moving forward, I think you flip to Nolan Gorman at third base. You've got Mason Wynn, who has shown that he's going to be your shortstop for the future, and looks like he's going to be an All-Star caliber, Gold Glove caliber middle infielder. And we saw flashes in 2023 of what Nolan Gorman could do. He had hit 236, had 27 home runs and 76 RBIs, and looked really good at the plate. Still can't touch a lefty. I mean, has one of the worst swing and miss rates when it comes to left-handed pitching. Looks like he's really got to figure out how to hit the slider from a left-handed pitcher. I mean, he's either getting jammed inside because he's casting away for that left-handed slider, or he's just not going to be playable against lefties, and you're going to have to platoon him, which is not something you want out of a number 2 prospect in your system at the time, number 1 prospect before he came up. I mean, this year, awful year for Nolan. He only had 15 doubles. He hit 19 bombs, but if you told me he hit 7, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds about right. Only 50 RBIs. He was in and out of the lineup. Only 107 games this year. Hit barely over 200. I mean, right at 203. Had 151 strikeouts, which is just abysmal. Puts him at one of the top strikeout guys in the league. OBP of 271 and a slugging of 400. I mean, worst statistical year of his career in year 3, which is his age 24 season. I mean, this dude should be getting on a roll, picking it up, figuring it out. But I really think Nolan's a great player. I think that he could be one of the premier guys for the Cardinals moving forward. And, I think they're going to go to a lineup of, you've got Nolan Gorman at third base, Mason Wynn at short. I think once the Weatherholt kid, our number 1 prospect, comes up, he'll be a second baseman for the time being. It doesn't have quite the strongest arm in the world, but he's going to be one of your top bats. He's number one prospect in our system for a reason. Or you go to Thomas Saggies. I mean, he showed flashes at the very end of the year that he could play second base or play third base, whichever he needed to. But I feel more comfortable with him at second. He's definitely not a middle of the order or top of the order bat. He's definitely like your 6, 7, 8. One of those hitters, rounds out the bottom of the order, table setter for the top. And that could be done, but I would rather, find a bridge, put him as one of our bench guys. If he produces, then maybe plug and play with him, with Nolan as righty lefty matchups. But JJ Weatherhold, I think, is going to be a beast. Seventh overall pick this last year. Should have been the number one if he doesn't have a hamstring injury that kept him out for a lot of games during the season. And overall, I think that you probably stick Alec Burleson at first base. He's not an outfielder. Alec Burleson kind of looks like me in high school running after the ball in left and right field. I mean, he has a strong arm, but you don't have a first baseman playing right field. And so I think you move him to first, let him play his natural position. And then, catcher, you got William Contreras, or no, sorry, Wilson. I wish we had William Contreras. Um, and then the biggest question mark right now is Jordan Walker. I mean, a guy that has been your number one prospect, is the only person I've heard about for the last 5 years in the Cardinal system, and he was awful. Um, was so bad this year that he was sent down 3 or 4 times just to work on his swing and try to get right. They brought him in 2022 and uh, let him play a little bit. Wasn't bad. And then 2023, he comes up full time, wins the job in spring training, hits 276. He gets off to a slow start, but then he starts tearing it up. Ends up hitting 16 home runs, but they send him down like mid year to work on his launch angle for his swing, and big against the launch angle. If a dude can rip the cover off the baseball, let him rip the cover. Don't make him sit here and fine tune his swing and try and, if you're good at baseball, you're good at baseball. That's the whole thing. You don't necessarily need to worry about all the other things like launch angle. I mean, one of the worst things that has ever happened to Chris Bryant was he was the big launch angle guy. And within 4 years, I mean, nobody even remembers Chris Bryant outside of Cubs fans. I mean, the dude was an MVP in 2016, 2015, and all of a sudden just falls off the face of the earth because of this launch angle swing. And it just makes it look awful for the MLB when you send a number one prospect down, a top 5 prospect in the MLB, because, he's hitting doubles in the gap, not home runs. And I mean, it shows, in this first year with Cardinals in 2023, played 117 games, hit more doubles than home runs. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm upset about that because, doubles are 2 less bases than a home run. You're putting a guy in scoring position. If you got guys on, you're scoring everybody with a double, unless it's, you know, a pinch hit guy that is a catcher or even a first baseman that's out there. Hit 16 home runs, drove in 51 RBIs, but he only played 117 games, which is just appalling to me for a team that, wasn't all that great that year. He's got to work, his base on ball, he had 37 walks that year with 104 strikeouts, hit 276, slugged 445. Just, I mean, not a crazy bad year. He had a negative .1 WAR. That's mainly due to his outfield production because he's not a true outfielder. And, they were trying to do this for him in spring training to get him on the roster, and it worked a little bit, but you definitely saw that he wasn't exactly comfortable in the outfield. And then, we kind of roll into the next year and everybody's like, okay, Jordan Walker's going to be the guy. This is his second year, sophomore year, breakout year. And it just didn't happen. I mean, he starts off the year and the first series he goes like 0 for 9 in the series, and immediately everybody hits the panic button, send him down, and he ends up having a terrible year. 201 batting average with a 253 OBP and a slugging, under 4, under 3.75 to be exact. He had 10 doubles, he only has 5 home runs again, and he only had 10 RBIs. had 10 walks too and 50 strikeouts. So in a short sample size, not very good. Um, but I am excited for the Cardinals moving forward. We've got some really talented prospects coming up with, Quinn Matthews winning MILB Pitcher of the Year. Tink Hintz, looks like a dog every time he's out there. Has had a little bit of injury history, but if he can stay healthy, he's going to be one of the best pitchers on the Cardinal staff in a couple of years. Um, and then, you've got the Weatherholt kid. He looks like he's going to be a beast. It's just all about how long are these guys going to take before they can make that jump from, Quinn, he's in AAA, he's 24 years old. He can maybe make the jump at the tail end of this year, or maybe in the mid months, right before the All-Star break or after the All-Star break. But Tink, 22, still super young. He's still in AA. I don't really see him making the jump in 2025. I think that's more of your 2026 guy. And then with JJ Weatherholt, again, 2020 or 2025, 2026, in my opinion, he's in single A right now, but he's not going to stay in single A. He absolutely tore the cover off the baseball in single A. And it all just depends on spring training with these guys. Are they going to have a good spring? If they look the part, then why not try them? I mean, you might as well. You just don't want to get into a situation where it's like Michael McGreevy, where you bring him up and he's not what you hope for, and then you have to send him back down, and then you bring him back up, and he's all sorts of rattled, and he just doesn't look like the player he did in AAA for the longest time. And then you still do have Tico Robbie. Last year struggled, had a shoulder injury. Just didn't have a very good year. He's a AA guy, 23 years old, right-handed pitcher. I don't know. I think 26, 27 for this guy. Give him a couple more years. Could be a reliever, could be a starter, not sure. The one dude that I will end this segment off with, that I'm very, very hopeful for, is Chase Davis. 2023 first round pick out of Arizona. If you look at this dude, he looks like Carlos Gonzalez, swings like him too, plays the corner outfield, has a strong arm, left-handed. 23 years old and is in AA. Hopefully makes the jump to AAA this year, has a good spring training next year, and makes the club. I think that Chase Davis is one of the best young hitters in the Cardinals organization. And I think that it's going to take some time, but I think with the new management and Shane Bloom coming in from the Red Sox, seeing what they did for a couple of years, being able to build an organization back up, because the Cardinal way is gone for now, but it can be easily rebuilt. I think that Oliver Marmol's got to go. I think that John Moselek's got to go. I think that if the DeWitts don't want to start throwing out some cash, I think that they got to go too. But I'm also sitting behind a screen and not in a front office with billions of dollars. So we're going to transition to the topic of today, which is Illinois men's basketball. And they play here in about 15-ish minutes. Against Ohio State at home at the State Farm Center in Champaign, which is just like an hour up the road from me. And over the last couple of games, it's been pretty lackluster for the Illini squad. Our center, Tomislav Ivicic, goes down with mono after the Michigan State heartbreaker, where it was a ref show, and a top 5 prospect in the NBA draft got to play a total of 8 minutes. If that ever happens again, we will riot. But Tommy goes down with mono, comes out, and we've had some really heartbreaking losses. Have not looked good over the last 6-7 games without him. Just coming off a tough loss in Nebraska, where we just played absolutely awful. It really started with the USC game a couple Saturdays ago, but then you bounce back against rival Indiana and you 30 ball them, but then you lose the heartbreaker to Michigan State. You get out rebounded there. You lose bad at home against Maryland by 21. I mean, that is a heartbreaking loss. And then you beat up on Northwestern, and then you come back and you lose an overtime game against Nebraska. Just simply can't have it. I mean, you're now 7th in the Big Ten when you were preseason top 3, top 2. Some people had us winning it. And I really think that it comes down to the fact that you're missing your 7-foot center. It sucks, but you got to figure it out. I mean, Marez Johnson has come in, played really well for us. But when you go up against these teams in the Big Ten with a big man that, like even Julian Reese, who isn't the tallest person in the world, just got absolutely after us. 17 rebounds, 10 defensive, 7 offensive. Just couldn't get anything going inside because they're just stacking the paint. Um, and I really think that, there's got to be some shift. And I get on Twitter today and I see that they have made some shift. Dre Gibbs Lawhorn is going to make a start today. Should have been starting for probably the last 5, 6 games. Um, and I think that all my friends know how I feel about this, but if Ben Humrickhouse sees the court for more than 15 minutes, and if he's not hitting threes and he is not, rebounding the basketball, he is the biggest defensive liability on this Illinois team. Plain and simple. He's getting back cut. He doesn't rebound very well. These other, if he's playing the 4, he's getting out rebounded by every 4 in the Big Ten. If he's hitting threes, yep, he can space the floor, makes these guys pull their power forwards slash centers slash small forwards ish out to the perimeter, and it opens things up for the guards to drive in. But if he's not hitting, in the Nebraska game, just for an example, if you continuously throw a guy out there who is over the entire time, over 7 from 3, has 1 point, has 7 rebounds though. The dude's just out here getting cardio. 0 for 8 from the floor in 24 minutes. You just can't win a basketball game with that when you look at their starting 4, and he goes for 27. Most of the time you're out there throwing Ben Humrickhouse at Bryce Williams, and Bryce Williams is going, thank you. This is going to be barbecue chicken. And so I'm looking for a bounce back game today for Illinois. I think they can get after this Ohio State team, who, even though they're coming off, some of these wins, most notably they're coming off a big winning against Penn State, Iowa, and Purdue. They won 3 of their last 4. They got beat up by Indiana on some heartbreaking stuff, and then they went to the wire with Oregon, Wisconsin, and Indiana, all 2 to 1 point losses. So this is going to be a fight. If Illinois gets out rebounded, if they turn the ball over, if they don't share the ball the way they need to, if they don't attack the rim, then these 3-pointers that we're going to have to settle for when we're the 300th shooting 3-point team out of 355 in the entire Division I men's basketball. Why do we continue to shoot these threes when we are in the bottom 10% of 3-point making teams? Yeah, we shoot a lot, but we don't make a lot. You have to attack the rim. That's where this team misses Terrence Shannon Jr. so bad, a guy that could just go to the rim and open things up for these other shooters. But when you don't have that, and you have, a lottery pick that wants to show the NBA what he can do, that's fine. KJ, Kasper Siakachonis, can make these shots. I don't love some of the shots that he takes, but at the end of the day, he's a lottery pick for a reason. He makes big shots. He's going to make good plays. Kylan Boswell's got to step up. This dude came here from Arizona to be one of the scoring guys for us. And, outside of the triple-double game, Kylan hasn't had the best showing at Illinois. He's been too much of a facilitator when at times I think he can, attack the other team's point guard and really get to the rim. Needs to stop settling for 3-point jump shots. That is just not his game. Definitely more of a driving defender, slasher. This guy's just got to realize his role and realize that when KJ's not on the floor, and you have a lineup of Will Riley, Ben Humrickhouse, Marez Johnson, and whoever you want to put at the other guard, probably Dre Gibbs Lawhorn, you got to realize that, if Ben's not hitting shots, that's not one shooter. If Marez can't shoot the 3, that's not another shooter. Will Riley's not real efficient at shooting the 3, that's not another shooter. You got to realize that you have 3 guys on the floor that don't shoot the ball very well at the time, and you have to realize that they are going to pack that paint, and you have to be the crafty guard that you were at Arizona, to open those lanes and be able to get them to be able to drive to certain spots. And so I really hope that, Illinois has a bounce back game. 3 Sundays in a row, haven't had a good showing. And we've had, bad course record against Ohio State in the past. They seem like they always come and play us tough, but it's a must-win game. I mean, the line right now is Illinois minus 6.5. I think it'll be closer than that. I think, Illinois might win this game by 2 or 3, hopefully. But I think Ohio State keeps it close. I think that there's a lot of guys that can do good things for this team, and they just have to show it because if not, uh, and if they continuously play like this, then I mean it's going to be hard for Illinois to really win these games. And I really hope that this next 5-game stretch is going to be pretty crucial for this Illinois season. We're really going to see this make or break. I mean, you play at Ohio State, at Rutgers, you play at Rutgers, at Minnesota, against UCLA, against Michigan State. And then, if you lose 1 or 2 of those outside of the Michigan State game, you're looking at a pretty bad Big Ten season for these guys. And so you definitely need to win at least the Ohio State game. Rutgers is going to be tough. Their freshmen are unreal out there, and it's at Rutgers. It's a hard place to play. Illinois historically has not been very good out there. Minnesota must win. Minnesota's hot right now. Doesn't matter. Got to win that game. UCLA, I mean, for a while it looked like they were going to fall apart and just be awful. But they've kind of bounced back as of late, and have looked better. But their head coach is still delusional, as he called the players. It's hard to coach delusional players. I guess that's true. It probably is, but at the same time, I don't think you can say that to your team. And I just hope that we can play these teams good. Michigan State at home, got to rock the place. It's a 7:00 game. No reason for the Orange Crush not to go out there. And then you're going basically to the roughest stretch of our schedule. You're going to play at Wisconsin, Kohl Center. Haven't lost there. Haven't lost to Wisconsin in I think the last 7 or 8 matchups. And then you play at home against Duke. That is going to be one of the more challenging games for Illinois. Actually, you play at Madison Square Garden, not at home. And Duke looks legit. They've got the guards. They've got the big man. They've got Coop. I mean, that dude is unreal. Watched him just go completely off against North Carolina last night. And then you play at home against Iowa. That should be one of the easier games. But then you got to travel up to Michigan. And that is never an easy thing to do, especially with that team. They looked inconsistent at times, but Michigan is still easily a top 25 team. And I think that this is not the Michigan of old, the Juwan Howard, where, just simply gets out coached and their teams don't play as hard. This team plays hard. This team plays together. There's a lot of continuity. They're good on the offensive end. They've got good scorers. And then to round out the year, you play at home against number 10 Purdue. I think Purdue is one of the best teams in the nation. When going on all cylinders, they've got a great coach in Matt Painter. Braden Smith's one of the best guards in the entire NCAA. But if we get Tomislav back, I think we can absolutely take advantage of their big man. I mean, Trey Kaufman-Renn is not a big man. He's one of those guys that can absolutely get taken to the basket and be exploited on defense. But, they're going to run great sets. They're going to run, the pick and roll. They're going to get open shots. They're going to make open shots. Fletcher Loyer probably will go for 30 because, all Illinois fans know it's death taxes and some random player from some random team going for their career high against Illinois. I mean, we've seen that way too much this year. I'm surprised Brooks Barnhizer did not go for 50 against us this year, which sad news for Brooke Barnhizer, done for the year. But who cares? It's Northwestern. Yeah, so I'm gonna open this up to some of the comments that I've been seeing. Griff said, "What do you think about since Tommy's been out, our starting lineup has a plus minus of -42?" Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Like you're getting out rebounded. You're not taking care of the ball. You're throwing it away too much. I mean, we had 1 assist against Nebraska at the half. It's just not playing team basketball. You're just out there running, like the Matthew Meyer team a couple years ago, where it's just, hey, I got the ball, I'm going to shoot the ball. Too bad, so sad. Um, and the whole thing is, I mean, you've got to have a good continuity of offense. And if you don't have that, then your offense is going to look lackluster in the half court, like it has been. And we also haven't been getting back on transition. And if we're going to switch a screen, don't get beat by the same move twice. Shake the lineup up. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn is going to come out here and drop 20 today. I'm going to put that out there right now. Illinois is going to win this game by 15. That's my prediction for today. Cole, Tommy, we have no idea. Mono is one of those things where it's very scary. It's a very, nasty disease. The enlargement of the spleen, I know you're not a big anatomy guy, but, you get hit there and that's no bueno. It's not going to be good for you. He'll be out a lot longer than that. So I don't think they're going to rush back a sophomore at this time. If it was, mid-February, late February, early March, they might try to throw him back out there quicker than that. But and then the last question I'll do is Tanner, when do you talk about the political and economic state of the world? When you're on the podcast with me, we can talk about all that. I'd like to stick to sports on this, but I mean, if you want to throw out the question, we can look at it. We can do whatever you want. And then Cole, by the way, you spelled Chris Bryant's name wrong. It's Kris, not, the way it's normally spelled. But next week we're going to do our Super Bowl podcast, and I'm going to have 3 or 4 dudes on here. It's going to be a good time. Going to really talk about the Bears. Probably going to have Bears Packers, and then we're going to talk about Eagles Chiefs, what we think about that, and then probably recap Illinois men's basketball, see what happens after today. Hopefully Illinois wins. They've got some tough games coming up too, but to get back in the running of the Big Ten, got to win today, got to win Wednesday, got to win Saturday. So yeah, next Sunday, probably 11:30 noon. I'm going to have 3 or 4 guys on here. I know Griff and Brado and Luke Wallace have vouched to be on this for next week. So I'm going to introduce them, going to, see how this video does, see what, insights I get from other people, what they liked, what they didn't like. But yeah, next week, talking Bears, talking Packers, talking the Super Bowl. At the end, might get into some Notre Dame. But just going to roll with this. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this quick little podcast. Next week probably be a little bit longer, probably be closer to an hour. But yeah, I appreciate everybody coming on here and continue to tune in. See you guys.